Auto, and I wanted to go over flat-based pricing. Basically, this is a strategy that I think that's going to ultimately increase your search results. It's going to help you get you more exposure on your vehicles. Here's my contact information. I'll also have it at the end. That's my cell phone and my email address at any point in time. If you have any questions or concerns about what I bring up today, please give me a call or email, or if you maybe want to schedule a presentation about flat-based pricing with your stores independently to visit it with other managers at your store, we can do that. I can also send you a copy of this PowerPoint because there's going to be some reporting data at the end, some stats and stuff, and some reports that I've received from sites like AutoTrader to kind of back up the results that you're going to see here. I'm going to first go over kind of how we come up with our pricing numbers. Where did this all start? How do we price cars? And as far as the numbers, the digits go. Then we'll dig into what I believe, again, how flat-based pricing will increase your search results, your click-through rates. And also then at the end, we'll show you some stats and everything else and results to back up the information. Okay, so here's how it works. Again, it's going to increase your search results, increase vehicle detail page views. So increase the amount of times your cars pop up. Plus, I believe, based off of the reporting I've seen, you're going to increase the vehicle detail page views, actually click-throughs on your cars. And it gets your vehicles at the top of price band searches. When somebody searches low to high, high to low, that information, your cars will pop up at that point in time. And this one is something that I don't have any stats to prove, but hopefully at the end when I kind of visit with this on you, you'll understand. I believe it does reduce transactional discounting, and a lot of that, though, is up to the dealer's control. So there's a ton of other benefits, but really where I want to first start is, why do we price our cars at $11,998? I've had dealers tell me, well, I do $11,998 because the guy down the street did $11,999. We've done those print ads, and we've to where we're going to be $1 or so cheaper than the guy down the street. I've had dealers price cars at something like $12,872. He said, well, if it ends in a 2, it's my second price change, and if it ends in a 6, then the guys know they can't negotiate anymore. That's my last and final price change. Some people, might end their pricing at $19,933. I've had 88s and 33s or 77s, and that's just a way to indicate that that car is theirs online. Sometimes we do $24,987 or something like that, and make it look like we put some thought behind the numbers. Again, those are some of the theories of where they come up with their numbers. Well, I do it that way because it looks like I just, put every dollar into the vehicle and into the price. So there's tons of other ways that guys use it. Sometimes, it ends in a 1 for this lot, ends in a 2 for that lot. Again, there's tons of reasons why we do it, but those numbers essentially are out there designed to help us maybe manage our processes. And, those type of numbers to me work in traditional advertising. So I believe the $19,998 or the $17,995, those numbers essentially work. If somebody sees your ad, $17,995 definitely looks visually smaller than $18,000, or $19,998 again looks and sounds visually smaller than $20,000. And I get that, and that still works as long as they see your ad. And this type of strategy goes way back. I mean, from the very beginning of selling cars, the Yugo is $39.90. I mean, it's always the way we've always priced our vehicles. And to me, if you think about what has changed in used car operations over the last 5 to 10 years, everything has changed the way we used to be able to sell our used cars. To posting cars online, photos and descriptions, and I mean the days of just buying a car, putting it through service, put a balloon on the lot, and wait for us. That's not happening as much anymore. And so everything has changed in used car operations except for the tradition of pricing of what's called psychological pricing, the $19,995, and that's what it's called. It's basically, hold on one second here. We've got technical difficulties here. Hold on one second. All right. It's basically said, for an example, we'll price a car at $14,995 rather than $15,000. A rational customer would recognize there's only a $5 difference in price, and it's a big negotiable ticket item. such as a car. In reality, consumers do not tend to behave rationally manner, but they'll tend to act emotionally and round down prices. So although the price of the car is closer to 15 grand, many consumers will tend to think in the 14 range. Now remember that quote. That's something I'm going to bring up to you when we talk about reducing transactional discounting. But essentially, if I 14,995 it, the reason why I do that, or 998 or whatever that number is, the reason why I do that is to psychologically set the customer up to think of the smaller number of 14 grand and not visually see the 15 grand number. Okay, and again, that all makes sense as long as they see your ad. And then again, that's just how we've always done it. But today's customers, are shopping online. They're not going to the newspaper to buy cars and shop for cars. They're shopping online, and they'll shop by price bands. They might go to sites like AutoTrader and look for sedans or trucks or SUVs, or they might look for particular Jeep Wranglers. But also, a lot of them have a budget in mind, or they're pre-approved already through their credit union. So they're going to maybe search for a truck or a Wrangler, and they're going to search by price bands, 5 to 8 grand, 8 to 10, or maybe 12 to 15 grand. But no one goes in there and says, hey, I want to look at a car between 10 and 11,998, or they don't say I want a 995 car to 12 grand car. But that's where we're still pricing our cars like this at 11,998, and that's, again, to me, the old days, and it's costing you search results. So here's how. Let's say you take a car that's priced at 12,298, and again, this is a couple years ago, almost 2 years exactly, this is how I stumbled across it. I had a client who had a car priced at 12,298. And I told him, hey, you need to price that thing under 12 grand. Price that thing around 11.9 to help position your vehicle to get you more search results. Get it to customers looking under 12 grand. Because I was thinking at that time, by having that extra 298 on there, he's losing search results by customers looking up to 12 grand. So I told him 11.9. And then at that time, it kind of dawned on me. I was waiting for him to say, yeah, but I'll lose anybody that's looking over 12 grand. And that's what he did. You'd eliminate the possibility of showing up for customers looking over 12 grand, and that's where you cost search results. So if you 12 to it, you only get people if they say 12 or higher, 12 to 15. If you 11.9 it, and then if somebody looks 12 to 15 grand, you miss that consumer. And again, this is how customers could possibly search online. But that necessarily wasn't true. I was telling them 11.9 it to get more search results. But here's a hypothetical screenshot of AutoTrader. AutoTrader allows customers, and many other websites allow customers to type in what they want. So let's assume there's the same amount of shoppers that say they want to AutoTrader to say they want a 10 to 12 grand. Let's say 500 people do that search today. And then there's another band of shoppers that say that they want a car 12 to 15 grand. There's another 500 people there. So technically, all I really did, if there's 500 shoppers over here and 500 shoppers over here, all I did was take this car away from this band of shoppers and position it to this band of shoppers, and I necessarily didn't increase my search results by dropping that price. And that's where a lot of times, if you do have Auto and you're a merchandising tool and you're looking at price changes and you see minimal changes even though you drop the price, again, all you're doing is putting it from one band of shoppers to the other, and then not necessarily increasing your search results. You basically just broke even. Okay, so we need to move away from the psychological pricing strategy in order to increase search results. So instead of reducing from 12,298 and pricing it at 11.9, I would just change the price to 12 grand even. Now what that does for you, that allows you to show it for both price band searches. If somebody says, hey, I want a 10 to 12 grand car, your car will pop up. Now the benefit of that, again, a lot of these sites do high to low. You will be the higher price car in that segment. You'll be at 12 grand, but you'll be ahead of the 11,995 cars, 11,998 cars. You'll be at the top of those. But you also search for those customers that do 12 to 15 grand price band searches. You'll show up for those. So that's where the increase of search results. You're going to maximize the exposure on those cars. Okay, so again, this is what I call flat-based pricing, because once I stumbled across that, I was on that meeting and I said, hey, what if we priced it at 12 grand? He's like, what are you talking about? I said, well, if we do 12, we'll show up. Well, we're wondering if it would work. So we tried a few cars out. We went a few days later, looked at the website, and the cars popped up. And so I started doing marketing strategies. I started Googling and trying to figure out some pricing strategies out there. And I found there's about 25 different pricing strategies. If you think about it, it's like the buy one, get one free or buy one, get one half off. But there really wasn't anything talking about pricing at a 15,000 even number. So that's why I just call it flat-based pricing. And what I mean by that is just you're going to round up or down to the nearest flat number. So if you have a car at $14,995, I'd encourage you to raise that to $5,000. You're going to get more exposure on that car. There's more people looking for a $5,000 car than there are people that just say, hey, I want a Toyota Camry, you know, a $5,000. They're going to be looking for cheap cars, and they're going to maximize at 8 to 10, 5 to 8 grand. So if you have a car priced at $12,398 and it's due for a price change, I'd probably drop that thing down to 12 grand, drop it a few $100 and get that maximum exposure. Now this is where I've got to add to the point where I've had dealers, do this seminar, and I look at their inventory a month later, and they haven't changed any prices of cars. And I ask them, well, what's going on? And they're like, well, we put it at 8 grand. I was waiting to be able to drop it another $1,000, and they're not doing as many price changes. So I said, no, you still need to adjust the price every 2 to 3 weeks. But what you want to do is I would do price increments of $250. So $250, $500, $750, or the even $1,000 number. So essentially, if I tried 10 grand and it's been 3 weeks and I'm not getting any traction on it, depending on the market and my positioning, I'll either drop it $250 and end up pricing it $9,750, or I'm going to end up dropping it to $9,500. Now the reason why I $9,750 will not change your world then from being 97.82. That's not going to get you any more search results. But I do want consistency in my eyes. If I'm running with a flat-based strategy, I'm going to use it in my sales process. I'm going to talk to my salespeople and say, hey, we're pricing these cars to maximize exposure, one, but two, we're not doing a bunch of tricky numbers like a lot of dealers would do for the consumer. So use that to your advantage. When customers come to you and ask you about your best prices, say, hey, folks, not only do we price cars competitively to the market, we don't do a bunch of tricky numbers like a lot of dealers do. We won't price a car at $12,132. We'll just price it at $12,000 even. So when we sit down and discuss numbers, we're talking easy transactional dollars. So if I'm using that in my word track, I don't want to have a car priced at 12 grand and then the other one priced at $9,782. So again, just for consistency. All right. Anybody have any questions, concerns yet? I open this up to anybody having any questions or concerns. I mean, it's pretty simple so far. All right, speed it up a bit here. Here's the top 20 searches. Now I got a hold of AutoTrader. They gave me the top 20 price searches done on AutoTrader nationwide for the month of June. So 10 grand was entered in over 3 million times on AutoTrader. So 10, 15, 20, 25 grand are the obvious numbers people are popping into maximum price points. But you'll start seeing odd numbers like 6 grand and 7 grand and 16 grand and 13 grand. Some dealers say, well, I'll try it out. I'll try flat pricing on the obvious numbers. But if you look at some of these numbers like 17 and 11, these are numbers that I wouldn't think were obviously easily in numbers that you would assume people type in. But I also start thinking about that person who is, again, this is maximum price, who maybe is on a budget or maybe is already pre-approved and they know they can buy a 15-ish grand car. They might search up to 17 just to see if they're willing to spend a little bit extra money. Or consumers, as you might know, always want to negotiate. So maybe their budget's closer to 15, but they look up to 17, figuring they can maybe negotiate down or maybe spend a little bit more money. So to me, any number makes sense for flat-based pricing, not just the obvious 10, 15s, and 20s. Those are the ones that are going to get the most exposure. But there are people, and actually if you get, and then again, going back to the $250 and $500 increment stuff that I was talking about, you get a little bit further down this list, and I'm talking still in the top 25, top 30, you'll start seeing numbers like 7,500 or 12.5. Again, maybe somebody has 12 grand cash, but they look up to 12.5, figuring they'll negotiate down. So don't discredit those numbers either. And so again, there's at least 5 major reasons why you get away from psychological pricing. The first one is to increase those search results. Here's where I talk about getting more VDPs. Let me show you something. I believe most, that 11.9, 12.2 type car, I believe it performs better for that 12 to 15 grand shopper than for that 10 to 12 grand shopper. Again, at 12.2, I end up at this buyer. At 11.9, I end up showing up to these people. But I think you're better off with these people on this type of car. So here's why. I think most consumers searching 10 to 12 grand, they have a budget closer to 10, but they look up to 12. Anybody disagree with that? Somebody says, hey, I'm 10 to 12 grand. I think their budget's closer to, so if their maximum price is 12, they'll spend it, but they really don't want to have to. So your 11.9 car, which is really, again, about 12 grand, it's at the top of their budget and is not as appealing as a car's closer to 10. So when they do 10 to 12 grand and your 11.998 car shows up, they say, hey, that's kind of a cool car, but it's still at the top of my budget. What's closer to 10? You won't get the click on that car. All right, but let's talk about the customer looking 12 to 15 grand. Their budget's closer to 12, so that car becomes more appealing to that buyer. If they're 12 to 15, they're low, the budget closer to 12. But by pricing at 12 grand, I appear in both searches, but I believe you get that. If you take a car from 11,998 and raise it to 12 grand, you'll increase both exposure and the VDPs because that car, you just put it into a segment that it performs better on. All right. Now here's again some examples, some screenshots that you might see online. So this is an Auto Trader screenshot. Somebody might say, I want to look for a sedan, 12 to 15 grand. Auto Trader's default and cars.com is to look at high to low. So at 15 grand, you're going to be above the 14,999 guy. Okay, and there's a lot of markets that are already doing flat-based pricing, and there's been times where I've done a search like that, and I've got to get to page 3 before I even see any 14.9. There's a lot of 15 grand cars out there now. But let's say the user looking for 15 to 20 grand car, but he flips it low to high. He wants to see his budget's closer to 15. Again, you get at the top of the price band search. That's the lowest price car in that whole segment. And think about it. Now that you understand flat pricing, look at this guy at 1511 and 1530. He's just totally wasting the exposure on that car. He's missing that guy who's top of his budget's at 15 grand. But you get at the top of those price band searches. So again, we're going to increase your search results, and we're going to increase the VDPs because you position that car to the better segment, and you're also going to get to the top and bottom of price band searches. Here's some examples of sites that flat-based pricing will definitely work on. Auto Trader Edmunds, they have it. Craigslist, if you've shopped on Craigslist, really the only way you can shop on Craigslist is by price point. You can't say I want a truck. You got to say I want an F-150, or even though if you're just looking for a 15 grand truck, you can't do that search on Craigslist. So you're either just going to do a price band search, 10 to 15, and weed through looking for trucks, or you say, let me look at F-150s, and let me look at Silverados, let me look at Dodge Rams. Sites like Toyota Certified. Anybody on here has a Toyota store, I'm going to show you here real quick. And when you go into Toyota, and a lot of these websites already have, the ones I told you, Craigslist, Auto Trader, customers type in what they want to type in. Toyota Certified has flat-based pricing structures already built in. So if somebody says they want a certified Camry between 15 and 20 grand, your 14,999 Camry does not show up on the certified Toyota sites. And it happens on other certified sites too, like Chrysler, Nissan, BMW. I didn't go through them all. But they either, again, allow customers to type what they want, or they're already structured in those price band searches. And even your own website provider, maybe you have a dealer.com website that have flat-based price structured price bands already built into the systems. Again, here's some screenshots. Customers type what they want. Let me erase. This is a dealer.com website where they already have flat prices. So 13 to 18 grand, the 12.9 won't show up. Craigslist, customers type in what they want. Here's some examples of the results that we've seen over time. And again, this is when about 2 years ago when I started looking at flat-based pricing back in 2011. We had this car. If you guys don't recognize what this screenshot is right here, this is the merchandising tool. And the yellow line is the price changes. The black line is page views. It's a 5-day average. So as he dropped this price probably from 15,799 or something to 15,2 something, that 5-day average really didn't go anywhere, even though he dropped it $500. But when he dropped it just a couple $100 to 15 grand, you could see that the activity tripled on that car. Okay, let's go to the next screenshot here. These are, again, yellow prices, the yellow lines price changes. As he dropped those prices, the activity maximized at a 5-day average was 48. As soon as he dropped it to $5,000 even, the activity doubled on that car. This is the one I like, one of the ones I like the most. Look at all these price changes from 15.5-ish to 15.3-ish to 15.2-ish. This 5-day average didn't go anywhere. As soon as he dropped it to $15,000, it went from about 2 to 9, 5 times more activity. This car moved it to $10,000. Okay, the most it had in search results on average, 5-day average, was 104. It shot up to over 640 when he put it to $10,000 even. And then again, this is my favorite one, where this yellow line doesn't look like we changed the price at all. But what we did is we took this 133-day-old car, we moved it from $19,995. That's what it was right here. We raised it $5 to $20,000, and look at that activity spike. And after 133 days, that car sold in 8 days. Again, that's where my proof is the fact that at 19.9, it was only, it only showed up to people looking under $20,000, and that was at the top of those shoppers' budget. And we missed the $20,000 to $25,000 truck buyer, and that's where this activity took off. Overall, this is, again, in merchandising within Viato, you have the ability to look at your overall results. So on July 21st, I looked at their mid-month. He was projected for 84,000 search results, which was above June's numbers. But just 10 days later, at the end of the month, on July 31st, he actually ended up with 110,000 search results, which was double his June numbers. And that's, again, the only thing he did was convert over to a flat-based price in his whole inventory. And, the other way you can increase search results is maybe carry more cars on your lot. Maybe that's why his search results went up, maybe not because he flat-based priced cars. But what you can do also within Viato's merchandising is look at the per-day trend. This is per vehicle. So it doesn't matter if he had 10 cars on his lot or 100 cars on his lot. The search results per vehicle and BDPs per vehicle, you can see on July 1st was his first month of flipping to flat pricing, that activity. There's been spikes in there, but this was a huge trend. And here's another screenshot of another dealer that flipped his whole inventory over to flat pricing. If you notice here, this guy's here, his search results increased way more than his VDPs did. This guy here, though, his VDPs, his clicks actually increased more than his searches, because this guy, not only did he flat price, but he got more aggressive. So he was flat pricing him with a more aggressive price point, and the activity totally took off. So anybody, and this is, I'm asking, anybody have any questions right now? No? Quiet crowd? I'm going to throw this out to you, and I'm not going to ask for big input other than yes or no. Anybody here shop for a house lately over the last 5 years? Yeah. How did you search for it? You want? Sure, 250 to 300. So when I was doing this back in, and again, 2 years ago, I didn't have, all I had kind of was a theory at that time and some results. And when I talk to dealers, dealers want to know, they want to have proven results before they switch things over. So I was on a call with one of my dealers, again, 2 years ago, and he says, hey, Jason, I didn't even think about it. He goes, I tried to sell my house a while back. And he goes, my best friends are real estate agents, and they're the best in the Denver market. He said, when I went to sell my house, he goes, my real estate buddy was adamant that I wanted to price it at whatever, $299. He goes, but my agent was adamant that we price it at $300,000. He said his agent told him it took him 18 years to figure it out. If he priced that car or that house at $300,000 instead of $299, it's going to get more exposure. And that manager told me, he goes, Jason, I never thought about applying that to cars. So I asked if I can call his real estate buddy up and get me some stats, because I needed some proven stats. And so this is what that real estate guy sent me. He sent me some screenshots. He said, this one, we reduced the price from $205 to $200,000. He goes, you'd think, dropping it $5,000 would help expose the house. At $205, this is their total views per week. He maybe got 350 views per week when he was at 205. But as soon as he dropped it to $200,000, that activity took off. He said, here's what happened was, when I was at 205, I only appealed to the 200 and higher shopper. I didn't get that 175 to 500. And he goes, this is the biggest proof of it. He said, we were priced at 150, and then we reduced it to 145 during the week of 9/5. One would think that a $5,000 reduction would help, but it significantly reduced the number of online showing as true as physical showings. So what I'm saying to you here, and I'm going to show you the chart, our job, your job main goal is to get your cars to show up online when people search. I want my cars popping up. Then I want them to click on it and show up to my dealership for an appointment. Take a look at this chart when he did this to the house. When he was at 150 grand, he was getting about 450 views per week. When he dropped it to 145, look at this week at 10/3. He didn't even get 100 views that week. And again, here's my point. To prove that that 12 grand car does better for the 12 and higher than the 12 and lower. Down here, when he priced it at 145, this is the only time this house showed up was when somebody's maximum budget was 150 grand. When their budget's maximum is 150 grand, the ones that are priced around 145, that ones that are a little bit higher, they don't get the attention, okay? They don't get the attention that that house deserves because it's at the top of their budget. When he was at 150, he got a ton of activity on those houses because, again, 150 or higher, the 150 to 200 shopper, that was the best priced house in this whole segment. So I don't know who asked me about shopping for houses. Did you realize that when you're shopping for houses, did you maybe make any adjustments to pick up those houses? Yeah, because after studying this, when I've been shopping for cars myself, I'll if I'm looking for a 10 to 15 grand car, I start doing searches like 990, 900 to 15 because I know I might miss a lot of dealers. I don't know why this thing will go away. I might miss those guys that are pricing their cars at 9997. Now my computer's locked up here. You guys see this little Windows thing here? Yeah, I'm trying to get through it. It's like it won't let me click on it. Let me do this. Oh, there we go. All right. All right, hold on one second here. Anybody have questions so far? Does all make sense? Am I kind of dragging this out here? Sure. Yep. I'll show you guys that do it to their whole website. And I'm going to show you some emails here. I've got guys that once they flipped it over, they've had some of their best months ever. Obviously, if your price, if you move a car from 9990 to 10 grand and you're still 120% of market, it's not going to help you. You'll get more searches, but no one's still clicking on it. But if you're priced competitively, you flip that over to a flat-based pricing, the whole inventory. If you basically, I'm still going to use vAuto. Here, let me show you for an example. I'm still going to pull up a car in vAuto. I'm still going to make the adjustments and say, hey, you know what? I want to be priced at 98% of the market. And it's going to spit out 10752. Well, I would much rather put it at 10750. If I say, okay, I'm going to be at 98%, or I want to be number 5 in the market, it spits out 10425. I'd probably just 105 it. It's not going to really change your V ranking a whole lot. Now, some of the cars though probably just need to be a 10 grand car, and I'll get to that sooner or later because you got to think about too the car itself. How many people do you think wake up in the morning, run to the internet, and look for a Mercury Mountaineer? No one. Right? No one's going to autotradercars.com saying I have to have a Mercury Mountaineer. So the only way you get exposure on a Mercury Mountaineer is somebody saying they want an SUV, right? Now, if somebody says they want an SUV, they're probably going to put in price bands. They're going to say, I want an SUV, 20 to 25 grand. Well, by putting that Mercury Mountaineer at 19,998 is killing you. Because the only way you find is somebody saying, I want a SUV under 20 grand, and then Mountaineer at 19.9 probably is not that appealing to them because it's at the top of their budget and they weren't thinking of Mercury Mountaineers. Or the only way that becomes appealing is somebody does want a Mercury Mountaineer and you're the best price and they say they fall in love with it. But by pricing that at 20 grand, you're going to increase that. So if anything, the cars that you know, Pontiac G6, again, Pontiac's not around anymore. It doesn't get branded to people. They might forget about Pontiacs. And so they're not thinking of the G6. This probably has to be a 12 grand car for it to leave, maybe. So he's at 12.5 now at 96%. He could try 12.2 for a little bit, but his best bet's probably just 12 grand it and move on because it's only 20 days old. But day 45, definitely, it's always going to be a 12 grand car, but it's probably the best positioning for that vehicle. Does that make sense? But you got to think about it. I mean, Ford Festivas and Chevy Impalas, Chevy Impala at best is a 50-50. And what I mean by that, if it showed up 100 times in a search, 50% probably said they wanted an Impala. The other 50% said they just wanted a 15 grand sedan, right? So Impala is a 50-50 at best in my eyes. So think of those cars. But even if somebody says, hey, I want a Jeep Wrangler, those Wrangler buyers are not doing an SUV search. They're not generically, well, let me look what's out there for an SUV around 15 grand. They're looking for a Wrangler. But a lot of Wrangler buyers are going to be on a budget, and maybe their budget's 20 grand. So you don't want to miss those searches either. All right, some websites like cars.com, VIN Solutions, they add $1 to their buckets. So initially, I was afraid on cars.com where they put 10,000 and $1 to 15 grand, we're going to not get the exposure that I wanted to get. But what happened was we actually got just as much, if not more, exposure on sites like cars.com than we did even like AutoTrader. Here's the same guy's cars.com searches. On July 20th, his search results were on pace for 58,000. They ended up at 76,000. Again, he doubled his search results. His VDPs were higher than they were all previous months on cars.com, even though they added $1 to their pricing scheme. But here's what I think happens. Cars.com, if somebody does a 10 to 15 grand search, they have to hit the back button a bunch of times and remodify their searches and then go back if they want to change price bands. Cars.com, it's right here in the left bar, so somebody can go from 10,000 to 15 and 15 to 20 real quick. Plus, they do high to low, so you're going to get the exposure. So again, top of it, we're going to reduce, here, increase search results, increase VDPs, increase visibility, show up at the top and bottom of price band searches. The reduced transactional discounting, it's out of my control. You have to prove me wrong on this, but here's what I believe. Remember the quote at the beginning, although the price of the car is closer to 14.9 than 15, many consumers will tend to think of the 14 grand range. Oh, you're not seeing my screen. Here we go. So let me go back to cars.com. Here's their search results on cars.com. I'm sorry when I got that technical glitch. Remember when I talked at the beginning, although the car is priced at 14.9, it's closer to 15 grand, customers tend to think of 14 range. Think about it. If we price a car at 14.9 to make the customer think of that smaller price of 14. How hard is it going to be to defend your price when you have a 14.9 price and you add doc, tax and title, doc fees to that asking price? So your first pencil is 14.9 plus doc fees or plus taxes. You might start your first pencil in the 15 range, a 16 range. So you sit down with the customer, hey, the vehicle is 14.9 plus doc plus taxes plus negative equity, you're at 16.5 or whatever that number happens to be. It's going to be real hard for you when that customer says, whoa, 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 that's way too high of a price. Because here's what happened is I buy a 14.9 and I'm mentally making him think of 14 grand range. I sit down with that first pencil and that's what happens. He steps back and says, whoa, that's a lot higher than I was hoping. You really can't come to the customer. And when he says, well, I was thinking more 14 grand range, you can't say, well, where are you getting that number from, folks? I mean, because you essentially mentally set him up to think of that smaller number. So by flat pricing the car, and again, not that they're not going to challenge you, but if I flat price a car at 15 grand, and I add my doc fee of 400, 500 bucks or whatever it may be, and I sit down and discuss numbers with the customer, I'm at 15 grand plus docs, blah, blah, blah. and they go, well, I was hoping to get it cheaper than that. I found cheaper ones out there. I have the ability to say, well, where are you coming up with your number, folks? Or if I can meet that, you mean that $14,995 guy? If I can match his price, can I earn your business? At flat pricing cars, I think again, it's called psychological pricing. I had a dealer tell me, if I want it $15,000 for a car, I don't 14.9 it. I 15.9 it because I know they're going to negotiate me down to $15,000. So by pricing at $15,000, I'm going to minimize that transactional discounting. One, if I'm very competitively priced, or if I'm competitively priced, I can validate the customer and price one of the best in the market. And then if I do a 15 even, again, I didn't mentally set them up to think of that smaller number. And it took me a while before that dawned on me when I started studying flat pricing. I think, we're setting ourselves up for failure by 14.9 in it because we're setting them up to think of that smaller number, and the battle's on. We're going to start negotiating. So, again, that's the reduced transactional discount. I also think it's unique pricing. Let me show you some of these results, and then we'll wrap it up here. But let me do something that really stood out to me, and I just started this a couple Craigslist a few months ago. I used Craigslist to I think hit home with what this flat-based pricing works. Somebody on this call, whatever dealer, whatever market, tell me what state you're in. I'm going to go to your Craigslist. I'm going to show you something. Somebody, what's that? Jersey, South Jersey. Okay. I'm going to go to cars and trucks, and I'm going to do all cars and trucks. If you want to understand your consumers, you got to put yourself into their shoes, right? You got to act like you're a consumer. So I'm going to show you, again, I haven't done it in this market, so I could be shooting myself in the foot. But I think if you want to understand your consumers, let's do pick views. You could easily see somebody going into Craigslist and saying they want a car between 10 and 15 grand. Fair enough? I'm going to do a search for 10 to 15 grand, and I'm going to flip it low to high. Again, I know what I'm going to find here. I haven't looked at Jersey. See these 10 grand cars priced at 10 grand even? Can anybody tell me, anybody that hasn't seen this PowerPoint yet, anybody tell me what else every single one of these cars have in common other than the 10 grand price? Oh, wait, 99% of them. What's that? They're for sale by owner. You want to put yourself in your consumer's shoes. When they price their own cars for sale, 10 grand, owner, 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 owner. Look at all these. There's a couple dealers in here, but when your consumers price their own cars to sell, they price it 10 grand. Right? Here's what they don't do when they search for a car. 9,990 to 15 grand. Look what we find here. Dealer, 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 dealer. Talk about a huge disconnect. A consumer, when they search for a car, they're going to search 10 to 15 grand. When they price their own cars, they're going to price them at $10,000, not $991. But yet us as dealers, we hold on to this old pricing strategy. Don't you think this dealer would love this Pontiac Torrent to show up for that 10 to 15 grand searcher? He missed it by $9. Totally missed it. So to me, that just right there just validates flat pricing. They don't search 990. They're going to do 10 to 15 and they're not there. And when you do the 10 to 15, all their cars are there. Owner, 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 owner. And again, I do that in any market on Craigslist. You'll see the exact same thing. All right. So again, that's just kind of one of my other points to validate this here. Here's some emails again real quick. These are some emails I got from, guys that adjusted price. He had a car at 18,477. After 7 days, he had 1,000 impressions, 14 clicks. But changing it to 14 grand, basically it went from 2 VDPs a day to 6 VDPs a day by dropping it to 18 grand even. 146 searches per day to 219. He had this 30 grand, 30,005 BMW, again, dropped it to $500. It went from 1 VDP a day to 4, and went from 119 searches to 308. I have this other dealer of mine that actually, here's his, look at this car. It's a 357-day-old. Changed it to 6 grand on the 24th, sold 4 days later to 6 grand, sold it for 6 grand. He had this 59-day-old Ranger, 7,499, sold it for $8,000, changed it to $8,000 on the 22nd, sold it 5 days later for $8,000. Again, he didn't negotiate. You've already seen this guy's numbers. His Auto Trader searches went from 55,000 to 110. His Cars.com went from 36 to 75,000, flipping his whole inventory over. This dealer, that nobody, he's in Michigan on a big auto mall, and there's 10, 15 dealerships there. None of those dealerships ever broke 100 units before. His first full month of flat-based pricing, they broke and did 106, record for the month. The closest next dealer had 58 units. This is his SRPs and BDP activity. So his first month on it, I called him up and said, hey, looks like flat pricing works. He goes, yeah, but I think that had something to do with it, but I also got more aggressive in my first bucket. I dropped my price in my first bucket, so I think that helped too. So I said, all right, well, let's see what happens in August. So in August, he had another record month of 111 units, and his average price actually went up. So that's when I called him back and said, hey, your theory of lowering your prices, what caused that to happen, is kind of shot out the window. Your prices actually went up, and you still sold a record amount of units. So, again, he flipped his whole inventory flat pricing, had his record months. And I've had some guys have their best months ever. Here's that 133-day-old Silverado. Again, on the 20th, we changed it from $19,995 to $20,000. It left his inventory 10 days later after 133 days old. Here's a 104-day-old Colorado. We raised it on the 20th to $10,000 from $9,995, and it sold 8 days later. And that's the one that shot to 640 views. Auto Trader stats. Again, this is it. I got 3 more screenshots and we're ready to go. This is reports that you've probably never seen. Even the Auto Trader reps probably never seen it. This is a report done for Chip Perry at Auto Trader. He had an outside party scrape all the data and do reportings. What they're looking at is how the small shopper, Syracuse, New York, looked compared to the large town shoppers. They're looking at a number of perimeter changes. That means, a customer does a search in a 25-mile radius looking for a sedan, 10 to 15 grand, or whatever the parameters are. They do a search. And then if they hit the back button and change the parameter, maybe they go out 50 miles, maybe they change their price, but they change something and then search again. This is the report. If you look here, number of perimeter changes. If 58% did 6 or more perimeter changes. They did one search, they went back, changed a couple things, did another search. Over here, 56 or 57%, 60%, 57, almost 60% of consumers did 6 or more perimeter changes. They went back and forth changing what they're looking for. If you go back one more notch, there's 17% here, 18, 19, 16%. Basically, 75% of the shoppers did 5 or more perimeter changes. Okay, they did one search, went back and did another. If you look at how many people do minimum and maximum price was entered in almost 45 to 50% of the time. Somebody did a search with a maximum price, and minimum price, at least 20% did a search with a minimum price. That's where flat-based pricing comes into kick in. But see these perimeter combinations? So if somebody did a make, model, and distance perimeter, they only did on average 2.5 searches. But when you look down here, the ones that include a minimum and maximum price, they did the most searches of all of them combined. They had they're going to go back and forth at least 4 different times. So when you flat price a car, people that include price bands into their searches, they're going to go back and forth and do a bunch of different perimeter changes. Matter of fact, if you look at this list, the second one that got one of the most search results, again, minimum and maximum price. Or up here, maximum price. Again, when price is in there, they're doing a ton of different searches. So that's where, again, this is this validation. These are reports from Auto Trader that will validate when somebody does price band searches, you're going to increase those search results. You're going to increase the exposure in that car. Anybody have any questions on this? Okay, so that kind of wraps it up. Again, hopefully I validated the point of flat-based pricing. To me, I would, after studying this for 2 years, you cannot give me one benefit of pricing a car at $9,999. It just doesn't make sense to me. Here, The only way I would do it is maybe on my windshield on the lot, I would have it at $19,999. As my people walk the lot, they go, oh, wow, you know, the $19,999 is a lower number. But I would have that car priced 20 grand online. But you got to check your state and legal. If I would want consistencies and just have 20 grand across the board, but that's about the only other reason. Now, I do have one store that it was one of my best stores who's done one price for 15, 20 years, and he's very good at what he does. And his whole pitch over the last 20 years is how they price the car down to the exact dollar. So he is somebody that doesn't do flat pricing, and I get that, but he also has an average day in his inventory of 18 days, so I'm not going to try to fix what's not broken. That's about the only reasons that I would not price a car at 20 grand. If you're turning your inventory 15 times a year and doing a one price strategy and it's been working for you, fine. Or if on your lot you want to do $19,999, but online that car has to be priced at 20 grand just to maximize the exposure. Again, here's my contact information. Any questions, concerns, give me a call or email. If you want the PowerPoint, let me know. Or if you want to do another meeting with any of your managers at the stores, let me know. Appreciate your time, and sorry for the glitches. Yes, sir. Yeah, I have. You know, I grabbed an ad from one of my dealers who he ran his whole print ad at 20 grand even. I thought it was kind of neat because, you know, I've never seen it before, you know, just the way it's kind of spreading out here, this flat pricing. He did his print ad at 20 grand. And, you know, I would want consistency. Like I said, the only other way I could justify 19.9 in a car is on the windshield because I like having prices out there on cars on the lot, and yeah, 19.9 looks smaller. But again, you go into that whole negotiating thing where, you know, I want consistency and say, hey, folks, we don't do what a lot of dealers do. We don't do tricky numbers. You know, when we sit down and discuss, we just do even 20 grand and our processing fees and even 400 bucks. Yeah, and you know, so we won't price a car at 12,132 and make it all confusing for you. So my trade would be 10 grand, my dock fee would be 400, my sale price would be 15, and it'd be easy for everybody. So yeah, I want consistency. 20 grand. You guys do a lot for that stuff? Sure. No, I mean, there's no problem with that. I think you want to still get that exposure. I think this works great with new cars too. I mean, if you go to Auto Trader and search used cars or new cars, it's the same search results. People can say 20 to 25 grand, and if you got that ad out there,